Welcome to the BC Search and Rescue Association's AdventureSmart Expert Webinar Series.
Tonight is professional mountain biker Geoff Gulevich.
I wanted to share a few stats about search and rescue before we jump into Geoff's introduction. I was digging around with some of our staff, and I was curious how many search and rescue calls have we had specific to mountain bikers? In the last 5 or 6 years, we've had 715. On an average, over about a 3-year span, there was about between 20 to 25 a year, and they would vary depending on the region of the province. Geoff is a native of North Vancouver. I have the opportunity to live here as well for more than 30 years. We have a little bit of mountain biking just out our back door. It's pretty fun. It's pretty awesome, and it's super accessible. It's pretty accessible all around the province, though. We're really lucky in British Columbia. Geoff gets to ride all over the world. We don't all get that pleasure, but that easy access can sometimes give us a false sense of security. And I also know when I was digging in that data that the main reason, the number one reason, which aligns with our other activities too, for mountain bikers calling for help, is either losing control, which I can say that might have happened to me, I'll be honest, and crashing, which was the end of my incident, actually. And that's number one. And we know that first responders are coming out to help those in need who have fallen, crashed, lost control, injuries after that as well. So I'd love to really think about how we can, as all riders that are here tonight, me included, how we can reduce the severity of an incident, because we want to prevent it all from happening in the first place. But if we can prevent the severity of it, that's also success. So on behalf of the 3,400 search and rescue volunteers in BC, and they are on 78 search and rescue groups, we all thank you for joining us tonight to get a little bit more informed, to add to your toolkit mentally, maybe literally, after we hear what Geoff might carry with him or what we should all have with us, or some ideas on how we can mitigate risk. I'd like to introduce our guest. Geoff has firmly established himself as one of the most photographed and filmed free riders in the sport at 37 years old. The North Vancouver native is busy with slopestyle and free ride competitions, as well as photo and movie shoots all over the globe. If you just check on any of his socials, you'll see that that's true. And I'm not sure where he's sitting tonight. He could be far off in some land far, far away, but maybe he can let us know. Geoff produces a steady stream of high traffic web edits, and I know that for a fact, and is a fixture at international competitions. He also thrives on versatility, being just as comfortable on remote all mountain adventures in Argentina as he is hitting the Oakley Thunder at Rampage. With 5th place finishes in both Red Bull Rampage and Crankworx Whistler, which is just right around the corner, the 2 biggest contests in freeride mountain biking, Geoff has established himself as one of the best free riders in the world, and we're so lucky to have him here tonight. So listen closely. I know I am. We'll have some questions for you at the end to win some awesome prizes, and I can't wait to hear your presentation. Thanks for joining us, Geoff, and everybody for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandra and Scott. Thank you everybody for joining me today. Yeah, mountain biking can be pretty dangerous, as I'm sure most of you know from firsthand accounts and whatnot. But I'm going to take you through a little presentation that I have put together on safety mountain biking. And yeah, I'm born and raised in North Vancouver. I'm a professional mountain biker. I am obsessed with skiing, golf, hiking, anything outside, really. More or less the worst person you could possibly have sitting behind a computer, but here we are. Look at us grow. Been riding the North Shore for probably over 25 years, but figured I'd just round it to a nice quarter century there. But let's get into it. Mountain biking is dangerous. I'm sure all of you have seen crashes go, or anything riding go wrong, and you might not know what to do. But you probably know that everything in the forest is hard. You might get lucky and find a soft patch of moss if you were to crash, but everything in the forest, it hurts you. It's trees, sticks, roots to throw you off your line, rocks, and then you add moisture to it and everything's slippery also. So it's so important to be wearing the correct protective gear when you're out there. Goes from anything from obviously your helmet, knee and shin pads are a must. I don't ride without them. But then it goes as far as elbow pads, back protection, neck protection, anything you want to wear to feel safe and comfortable on your ride, and wearing the correct gear for the terrain you're riding. It might be tougher conditions than normal, and everybody thinks when it's dry, it's a little safer, but then it gets too dry and it's dusty, and the dust can often be more slippery than wet conditions in the forest. So be mindful of what you're riding, wear the proper gear, and careful out there. Like as fun as the sport is, anything can really go wrong. So you just got to be super conscientious out there. Be well prepared for your ride, and we're going to run you through all this stuff. Your correct pads, and take a first aid course. The amount of trips I've been on, I'm the only person that has first aid and wilderness survival, and I'm the guy riding. So it's kind of useless if something goes wrong. And take a first aid course, please. Help yourself, make me happy, keep Sandra happy. She'd be super happy if you took that course. Moving on, being prepared. Have your ride planned out. It's not too hard to just put a loose plan together. You don't need to be exact. Everything changes when you're actually out there, depending on how you feel, depending on how conditions are, but just have a loose plan. This is the area I'm going to be in. If something changes, maybe fire a text to a loved one or someone you trust at home. It's really not that hard. It takes an extra second, and then someone has an idea of where you are. Do a pre-ride inspection of your gear. Check your bike out. Make sure that it's shifting properly. Make sure your brakes are working. Just little things. You don't know how many times that I've seen people get out to the trail and they might have worn out brakes. Their shifting isn't working. Something's wrong, and it just adds more catastrophe to the ride than it needs to be. So quick pre-ride inspection, and more or less always ride with a buddy. I always break that rule. I ride by myself. I let my wife or a friend know where I'm riding. It's just better to have that word out there. So if you don't turn up when the sun goes down, they have an idea of where to find you. Like I said, let someone you trust know where you're riding. Very basic. Just, hey, going to ride Squamish, even just a region. You might as well just make it very generic, whatever. Riding from, riding Seymour, super easy. Bring a couple essential tools. You never know when something's going to go wrong. It's nice to have just an Allen key in your pocket. If you want to get super techy, bring a bag, throw a couple extra tools, a tube, the snacks, things like that in there, but just keep it basic. Take what you think you'll need. It's not that hard. Water, snacks, cell phone so you can call for help. Hopefully you don't need it, but you never know. You might just get a flat tire. You might not be able to get yourself back home. You might need a ride. As simple as that. Simple first aid kit, always worth hopping. It's nice to have some gauze, a simple wrap, something you might be able to make a sling with if you need. Hope not, but it's better safe than sorry. We've made slings out of jerseys. We've everything you can imagine. Just MacGyver something out of the gear you have if you need it. But yeah, it's super easy. Bring water, snacks, cell phone, little first aid kit. Let someone know where you're riding. Moving on. The weather's a factor. Heat exhaustion will speed up fatigue. You want to bring water, those snacks, and always bring a little extra water. Like if you think you're going for a couple hour ride, bring a couple liters, whatever you need. Bring just that little bit extra, because if you're out there for longer than you think, by the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. It makes it more difficult to make decisions, makes operating just that little bit more difficult. So why not? A little extra weight on your back, just going to make you more fit than ever. Dress appropriate for the conditions you'll be riding in. It's raining, it's snowing, super hot. It's nice to have a couple extra pieces in your bag. You never know what you're going to be getting into. You might be excited, might be having a great ride, stay out a little longer, could get cold, weather could turn on you. It's just nice to have an extra pair of gloves, maybe an extra layer. Basic things. It's very easy. Chuck it in your bag, forget about it. Better be safe than sorry. You're set. If something were to go wrong, somebody's gotten hurt, they're on the ground. When you're sitting around, you get cold. If you have those extra layers in your bag, this all helps. You can put it on them, keep them warm. We've come across incidents where someone has fallen in a wet place in the fall. They're there for hours waiting for search and rescue, and they are freezing. Everybody has to give them their layers voluntarily, of course, but you need to keep the subject warm. You need to look after them. They are priority number one right now, and you need to make these sacrifices. So if you were to have an extra jacket or a layer in your bag, you don't have to give up your jersey. It's a win-win for everybody. Trail Forks. I'm sure most of you have heard of Trail Forks. It is an amazing app on your phone, and it gives you live updates on trails. Not live updates. There's updates that are submitted by users. There's live updates on your GPS. And if something were to go wrong, you can send your exact location to friends, search and rescue services, or if you just need to get out of there, you have access to a GPS and you find your simplest way out. So, Trail Forks, if you don't have it on your phone, I highly recommend using it, especially when you go into new areas. It's amazing to see the trails that are within your capabilities. You're not going to end up on some double black or pro or like a hiking trail. You're going to have all the biking trails in this one app that you have access to. You have your live GPS. You can track your entire way there. It is an amazing app. I use it all the time when I go to different regions where I'm unfamiliar with the trails. Download Trail Forks. I kid you not. It is so handy, super helpful. Give a thumbs up. Hopefully you guys like it. I love it. Next up, listen to your body. All the signs that your body gives off. You could be tired one day. You could be dehydrated. You might just not be feeling it, but it's super important to listen to your body. You are the only person that knows how you're feeling, and you need to really trust your own instincts. So you need a little more gas intake, sit down, have a snack. There's no harm in that. It's nice to take a break, chat with your friends, chat with the group you're riding with, eat something enjoyable. Who doesn't like eating? Keep that water flowing in your system. Like I said before, dehydration definitely makes it more difficult to decide on things, figure out problems, even just operate. If you're super dehydrated on your ride, your reaction time is going to be slower. It could lead to incidents, or it could just make you grumpy. I get hangry all the time. So I have snacks in my bag. I have snacks in my pocket. You won't see me without some sort of food source on me. Uncertainty leads to incidents. If you're not sure about a move or a line or any sort of trail, you need to listen to yourself. It's okay to say no. These trails aren't going anywhere, and you really need to trust what you think of your own ability, because you got these people saying, oh, you can do it, just hit it, you just ride this, it's super easy. Might not be for you. You just might not be feeling it. And it's super important to be able to listen to yourself, maybe walk that part of the trail, skip that feature, whatever it is, you need to put yourself first. That feature is not going anywhere. It's going to be there when you're feeling fine, even if you have ridden it 100 times. Sometimes just not the day for you. It's okay. Make your way around, enjoy the rest of the ride. There's always another day. Don't fall into peer pressure. That's the biggest thing that I was mentioning before. When someone's like, you can hit that. Come on. Why don't you do it? I did it. That's great. Super happy for you. But yeah, you really need to relax, enjoy your ride. It's more about having fun than it is pushing the limits all the time. That's why we all ride bikes. So take it easy. Enjoy the company. You're out here in nature. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy these unique trails. Sometimes it's just not the day for you. All good, no problem. Enjoy the ride. Taking it to the next level. If you need a mountain biking, you want to improve, there are so many great coaching companies around here. North Vancouver, for example, we have endless cycling. Squamish has dialed in cycling. Whistler has summer gravity camps, and they all do private coaching. They all do group coaching. If you're new to the sport, just want to improve, you want to upgrade your skills, work on new little things, something you saw in someone's video online, you want to learn to do that, I'm sure they can guide you in the right direction to accomplish these goals. And the coaching level here is so amazing. We have so many great riders in this community, so many people that are so amazing at verbally explaining how to do certain things. Take it while it's here. It's such a great asset that we have, and not enough people use the coaching services that are offered up in the region. So if you want to take it to the next level, if you don't know how to progress on your own, get some help. It's amazing. You're going to be learning these new skills. You're going to be improving. You're going to be loving mountain biking more than ever. Emergency situations. The most important thing to do, in my opinion, is to stay calm. Nobody wants anybody rushing up to them when they're on the ground, freaking out, losing their mind. You need to stay calm. It's the only way to deal with the situation clearly. If you're panicking, you're going to make irrational decisions. You need to listen to your subject, talk to them in a calm voice. They might be winded, often are when you first get to them. Let them relax for a couple minutes. It's okay. Nothing, more often than not, nothing's going to happen immediately, but calm down, let the situation relax, assess what's happening. You can usually pick together what has actually occurred just by looking at the clues, the line they rode, where they are now. Take this all into account. Ask them questions if they're speaking. Check them out loosely. It's very important to, if you don't know the person, especially, just present yourself as a friend. It's okay. You don't have to be like touchy or anything, but talk to them. See if you can figure out what's going on. Check them out. It's okay. If they're complaining of any neck or back pain, do not move them. Do not sit them up. Leave them where they are. Overwatch, take notes, call 911, but overall, stay calm, please. There's nothing worse than someone running up to you. Oh my God, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Just adding chaos to a situation that already is frantic. So calm down, talk to your subject. The situation's beyond your knowledge or comfort level, call 911. They have direct access to search and rescue. They can triangulate your position. They can find out where you are. They'll be there in no time. Just keep your subject smiling as much as you can. Keep them warm. Keep them comfortable. You're the first responder at the time, so take your time. Talk to them. Everything's calm. If they can have some water, relax. That's great. But overall, mountain biking's awesome. You guys are gonna love this stuff. I think that is more or less all I have. Kept it super clean, super quick. I love to take any questions that you may have. Let's queue them
You
up.
bet. Oh yeah. Thank you very much for first of all. I did want to actually ask Sandra because you mentioned a very important point there, which is calm down and assess the situation. We actually sort of have a neat way of remembering that. Sandra, did you want to talk about stop?
Yeah, I'm glad Geoff brought that up actually, because you hit the nail on the head. I'm just going to expand on it for a minute, Geoff. It's really a key piece, and we talk about that as our stop acronym. We all know what stop means. We just want to expand on it ever so slightly. You know, search and rescue volunteers like Scott, he's one of the 3,400 in BC. They want you to stay put. They want you to stop. So exactly what Geoff was saying, they want you to stay there. It's much easier for them to locate you, and often in better condition if you've stayed in one spot versus, which we often feel we want to do, versus moving, going down a creek, moving down a ravine, going down a gully, thinking that's where the road is, or there could be a service road there. We want to be self-sufficient. We all do. And it's just in our nature. But when there's an incident and you know you need help and you need to wait there, it's so much better for you if you do. So our acronym stands for stop, think, observe, plan. then you can go into the actions. The stopping allows you to do what Geoff said, which hit another nail on the head, is to calm your group down, or yourself, or whoever's leading the scene now. You have a situation where you need to assess and address and maybe assign some duties, right? Maybe someone's in charge of communications. Maybe someone's in charge of maybe making some form of shelter. We don't know how long we're going to have to wait here. Maybe someone else is in charge of sitting with the subject, sitting with and being with the injured if they are, and keeping them calm and comfortable. If it's feeding them a little water and food and doing their best. So we all will have something to do. And that stopping allows us to think, okay, which is the second piece, think what we're going to do, who's going to do it, and how is it going to happen. And observations are another critical one. We can have incidents all over the mountain, close to fast moving water, close to really steep cliffs, over a roll that we're all now too close to. There's many things we need to think of and observe our surroundings to make sure that where we're stopping and waiting is safe and that we're all good right here. Maybe the crash happened right on the trail and you're over a little knoll and there's about 20 more people coming around the corner to rip over you and they're about to land on you. That happens. And you want to be out of the way. So place yourself accordingly, even though you're stopping and waiting till help gets to you, you're off the area that maybe there's more traffic coming down the route, right? Down the trail. So stopping, thinking, observing, planning. You've all packed something, I hope, right? In your fanny, in your pack, you've got water, you've got food, you've got first aid, you've got extra clothes, you have first aid kit. You've got another layer to toss on. You've got some signaling devices. Hopefully you have some form of communication other than your phone. That's your secondary means of communication. The first is either a Zoleo. These are just examples. Spot, InReach, the Garmin devices. Those are your primary. Those are your first means of comms. They're satellite based, and that's going to give you access to help, right? Take your phone. I do. I still do. Got my watch on my phone. It's coming with me. Those are my secondary means of communication. So really think about that one. And then you can act, right? You've got shelter being made. You're taking care of your subject. You're stopping and waiting for help. And search and rescue has been communicated to either through your comms device or let's say you're due past your deadline to be back. Your emergency contact's going to phone, Sandra, where are you? I don't answer or we don't answer. They know by a certain time that they need to call 911. There's no other number. That's North Shore's number. It's the number for fire, ambulance, search and rescue. It's the same number for everyone. And you've called for help. So it's either through you or your emergency contact with your massive trip plan that you left with them, right? You've already sorted that and dialed that in before. You can use our AdventureSmart trip plan app for that. Super easy. So just to sum that up, stop, think, observe, plan, then act. And that will help you assess, address, and take care of your situation and your subject and all of you. You don't know how long you're going to have to wait. Could be 30 minutes, could be a couple hours, could be overnight, depending on where you're having your incident. So you need to make that a safe space. And that will help you and it will help search and rescue because you've stayed put. It's like a large game of hide and seek, but you want to be found this time.
Can I add one thing to that?
Please.
If your subject has fallen in the middle of the trail and you are not capable of moving them, send someone up the trail to create some sort of blockage or verbally let people know that there is an incident. Because people do come down the trails pretty quickly, and if you don't respond quickly enough, then it could just be insult to injury. So if you have the ability to do it, send someone up the trail to verbally let people know that there is an incident, slow down, dismount, walk around, or assist if they have any sort of first aid capabilities. So
Great
No,
addition.
it's a great point. And I know I don't do any mountain biking at all, but I do cross country skiing, and cross country skiing can be on narrow, windy trails too. And you can get yourself into a position where people be barreling down and you've taken up the whole trail. And then you have two people falling down the trail tied up in each other, and that's never good. You just expanding the number of subjects doesn't work very well. Speaking of subjects, I heard that you were a subject of search and rescue. Can you tell us the story about like what happened there? Like where did it start? How did it go? And how did it end?
I certainly was. It definitely not something I'm proud of, but myself and a couple others, we were backcountry skiing off the back of Cyprus in low visibility. We had all of our avalanche gear, beacons, everything, and it was low, thick fog. I was middleman trying to keep eyes on the front runner and the tail gunner, and I somehow lost track of the last man. I don't know if he passed me or not in the low light, but I'd stopped before the final third of the descent we were doing, and it was either a small slide or a little sluffavalanche that took my legs out and took me down a terrain trap into a tree, and I ended up shattering my femur into 17 pieces. And I was pinned up against a tree, waist deep burial, and I had to dig myself out, and I managed to slide my body down the hill to make visual contact with my party so that they could call 911 for me. And it was wild if you want to get into details, but that's kind of a very compressed version of what happened. But search and rescue had to get a helicopter in there to get me out. And you can have all the avalanche gear on you, but if your party doesn't know where you are, a beacon's useless. So I made the decision to move myself down the hill to be able to make that visual contact. And I think that definitely saved my life because they had the means to contact 911 that got search and rescue, sent a helicopter. And it took about 3.5 hours because of the dense fog that we were dealing with. So we were locked in. I had layers put all over me by my group. They were doing everything we could to create a wind barrier and keep me warm, but it's -8 degrees, and that's the first time I've ever had to deal with the cold as an element. I'm usually in the summer when you're crashing, it's not a big worry with the weather. But cold day, we had minimal layers because we were touring and doing backcountry. And yeah, if I'd stayed up against the tree, I probably would have died from elements.
It can be scary for sure. The how long did it take you to heal?
Uh, I was non-weight bearing after surgery for just 15 weeks. And then,
Well, that's pretty quick.
yeah, considering I was a human jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah,
But yeah, 4 months on crutches, it seems like it takes forever.
yeah.
So as soon as I could kick those, I began seeing my physio, not my physio, my rehab therapist. He would be so mad if he heard that. I began seeing him about 7 or 8 days after surgery just to work on swelling and scar tissue. And then as soon as I could get on a bike in the gym, I was just working on blood flow. I refused to get a scooter. I was making sure I crutched everywhere just to keep the
Yeah.
blood flowing and speed up my recovery. And I was mentally back to 100% at about 10 months after incident. I was down at the freeride fiesta in Mexico hitting 60-foot jumps again. And it was much sooner than I anticipated, but overall it was an amazing recovery, and I had a great team around me to help me get there.
What lessons did you take from it?
Modern medicine is amazing.
This is a fair learning. Yeah.
Honestly, we were doing everything by the book, and even in those situations, things can go wrong, and you
Yep.
need to be aware of that. So I think that is probably the biggest lesson I learned from it, that no matter how prepared you are, all the bad stuff can still hit the fan, and you need to be mindful and prepared for any situation.
That's one of the reasons why we actually had an entire webinar on no charge for rescue. And one of the reasons why is there's a lot of people who talk about, oh, you know what, a person goes and they cost a whole bunch of money to the province, and all of these volunteers are put at risk, because we are, every time we go out, there's a risk, right?
Absolutely.
But the thing to remember is even the most prepared person, even search and rescue people, have to be rescued occasionally, right? and you could be absolutely most prepared, and you could have an unfortunate circumstance happen to you. We had someone on, was it 4 weeks ago now, that they were hiking. It was a perfectly great day, and as they were at the top eating their lunch, a forest fire started down between where they were and their car, and it started sweeping up the mountain. It wasn't even there when they started. It only started while they were having lunch.
Oh,
And yeah, that wasn't their fault. There was absolutely nothing that they could have done to prevent that,
wow.
other than, I guess, getting out with a really big garden hose. But I don't think that was a reasonable. And these things happen. So one of the reasons why search and rescue is free for everyone is because these things can happen. Can you tell us on a mountain biking thing, what is your scariest mountain biking adventure that you've had?
Ah, I've been pretty fortunate overall with the bikes. I've definitely had a number of good tumbles. I've broken my talus, tibia, patella, femur, radius, ulna, scapula, AC joint, a couple compressed vertebrae, countless stitches. But yeah, it's really hard to say. You just want to get back out there as soon as you can. I always say, if you're going to be dumb, you better be smart.
How about encountering other people who are on the trail and helping them out?
Yeah, I've definitely come across numerous occasions. The October before my incident, so I guess October 22, we came across a young man who had a upper back pain from striking a tree head on, and I was the one that actually had to control the situation. His group was trying to convince him to stand up, and I was like, no, 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 that's not happening. And I taught the young man who was trying to move the subject what C-spine was.
Yeah,
I told him to get comfortable because he's going to be there for a while.
yeah.
And he would never forget that after trying to stand his friend up. And then I asked him if he wanted me to call SAR, and made the call. He wasn't confident about moving, so I encouraged him to call search and rescue, and he had a long line out, but he healed up just fine. And yeah, there's been numerous occasions I've been present for. Tons of broken bones, concussions, people snoring on the trail, and you need to remain calm. That's the only thing, because you might not have the answers, but adding panic to any situation is not the medicine.
No, it's a good lesson. I know, Sandra, you had incidents on the trail. You had one that you just posted on social media a couple days back. Can you tell us a story about your mountain biking adventure?
I like the word adventure. Thank you for labeling it that way. This sounds way
Mishap?
safer, way
Is it
better
better
than
than mishap?
it. Adventure sounds way better than it felt. I'm just going to leave it at that. But Geoff brought it up. Actually, it was really interesting because it rang a bell. He talked about conditions. And I think for those of us who ride within the Sea to Sky corridor, Lower Mainland, let's just leave it there, North Shore, Whistler, Squamish, Pemberton, it can get wet, right? And I think some of us are used to that type of slippery and sliding in that, and understand what our bike will do and how it maneuvers and how it feels and how we feel riding it in those conditions, because it happens a lot. And it's a more of a common condition than what we're experiencing kind of right now, and what I experienced in August 2022. That was also hot, dry summer, and it was near the end of the summer. And I was talking to my massage therapist yesterday about mountain biking incidents, and I was reminiscing about a few of my falls, and they all, after I talked about them, were at the end of a season, closer to the end of a season, where I felt strong, confident, maybe riding faster than I would be in April. So August, September is when Sandra maybe got a little bit too complacent and felt a little bit too overconfident. But I've built up my strength and my mental awareness and everything. I just feel better at the end of a season than I do at the beginning, right? That's what I think anyway. So my fall, August 2022, was on Frome here in North Vancouver, and the conditions were super dry, dusty, loose little rock that we're not used to, like, sliding around on. And I remember even just the last few weeks riding, feeling that feeling again of right before I fell, as I've slipped. I haven't fallen, but my bike's moving differently and quickly, right? And Jeff's nodding his head, he knows. And it's a different feel than sliding in mud for me anyway. And I remember coming down on Frome, and those were the conditions. I could have been going too fast. I don't ride super fast. Trust me, fast would be Jeff's world, not my world, but fast enough, obviously, that what I came over and what I hit tossed my front tire faster than I've ever fallen in my life. Like, it happened so quick, and I'm down and tossed, and I felt a sensation in my left elbow. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And so I was able to kind of pull my bike off the trail, because I was on the trail and I was still able to do that. But I was pretty shaken up, and I was by myself that day, admittedly. And a lot of the trails that I ride are frequented by others, and I knew my laps, right? And this was part of what I do most days after work or during the day. But it tossed me down like a sack of potatoes. And a few things happened. My Apple Watch went off and asked me if I'd fallen, which I've had it talk to me before when I've been riding and kind of bumped over into a tree and like stopped myself quickly, and it talked to me, and I'm like, no, I haven't fallen. Quiet here. I'm just trying to continue my ride. But this time I had actually fallen. And as I looked at my watch, I could actually then feel what was happening on my arm, which was not looking pretty, and it was ugly and dripping off my elbow. So leave it at that. But I also knew that I was okay, but needed to sit down, actually. So I said, no, I don't need help. But I took a millisecond to think if I did, chose not to. And then just took some time for myself. I let someone know what had happened and where I was. They already knew, but I had said I had fallen. And a few said, can we come get you? I'm like, no. I can get to the road, no problem from here. And my legs were still working. I was just bleeding out of part of me. So I could get down. And I did. But yeah, it was ugly and not pretty, and came home and cleaned it up. And daughter pulled me away from the bathroom sink and said, no, come on, I'm going to take you to the hospital. 6 stitches later, which isn't a lot, but it was gross and dirty, and it was dry and full of road rash, right? Full of trail grit, which no one loves, because you know what they have to do at the hospital, which isn't pretty. So not as extensive as injury and incident that Jeff's been through, but still it makes you think. And even small ones like that, or however you rate it, or bigger ones like Jeff, they can play with your mind, and they can make you think when you're riding and you feel these different conditions, and just makes you think. It resets you, reset me anyway, right? And even though I was bleeding as I was riding home, I was glad I got back on my bike eventually and finished the trail and rode home, got off my bike, got in the house, very consciously and slowly. And then had it taken care of after that. So thanks to Lionsgate Hospital for all you do. But it ended well. But it can happen to all of us. Jeff listed many incidents, and there's many more out there. And probably some of you sitting with us tonight have fallen too. It happens. I love my knee pads. I love my elbow pads. I love my helmet. And I kind of feel, if I get to certain points and I put them on, and if I forget maybe the elbows or something, and you get going, and I kind of feel naked, kind of feel weird without these pieces of gear, right? So really good habits. But yeah, it can make you think, and it can make you be reminded of how quickly, if there's anything I can think about that amongst a million things, it happened really fast. But it was the conditions, right? And what I was doing in those conditions. I'm not going to blame the rocks on the ground. I'm going to blame me. It was what I was doing on that trail that made that happen.
And it's interesting you bring up the complacency side. Geoff, you're a professional, so you're doing this on a regular basis. And to some extent, it's a walk in the park, right? This is something that you do so often. How do you dial yourself back and prevent yourself from being overconfident? Or is there a level of overconfidence you can hit as a professional?
There's definitely a level of overconfidence, but you just need to be mindful. The conditions are always changing, and some people ride with headphones, and I encourage people not to do that, because listening to the terrain is an important part of riding. You want to hear what the ground is doing. You want to hear if it's wet. You want to hear if it's dry. You want to hear those loose rocks. It's good indications that the traction just isn't completely there. So you don't really dial yourself back, but you definitely, you adapt to the conditions. And if it's a little bit looser, you stay a little bit off of the front brake, because if you're locking up the front brake or locking up whatsoever, you're losing traction. And keeping the wheels rolling is your best traction. So you want to commit to threshold braking, listening to the terrain and listening to what it's telling you. Are you hearing rocks? Are you hearing all those little pebbles under your tires? Does it sound like you're riding through a cobblestone playground? Is it wet? Are you sliding? All these little factors, they're indicators on what the conditions are doing and what the trail's telling you. So got to be mindful of what what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, and just adapt to the terrain.
Question for you about just a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you wake up in the morning, you weren't planning on going biking, but you know what? I think I'm going to go biking. How does that work for you? Like, what do you do at that point in time? You go, okay, I'm going to try someplace new. What research do you do in order to look up at that? What plans do you make? How do you like leave your trip plan? What do you bring with you? What type of thing would you do if you're going to go someplace new and you just thought, you know what, let's go up and try it?
I usually try to link up with a local from the area that's familiar with the terrain. That would be the best thing to do, in my opinion. But if you don't have that resource, it's worthwhile to maybe try YouTubing a trail that you're interested in, looking it up on Pink Bike or Trail Forks. Just gain as much data as you can. What's your entrance? What's your exit? How long is this ride going to take? What's the weather doing today? Is it hot? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Just try to gather as much data as you can. If you do have a local guy, that's obviously the key to the city, and you're going to have a great time no matter what. But if you don't have that, do a little bit of homework. The internet's a beautiful thing. You get as much intel as you want. Trail Forks can map out the ride for you. And that's when I would generally ride a little bit reserved. Check out the trail the first time around. If it tickles your fancy, go back up and maybe speed things up and make it a little cooler the next time.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially I know that there's some trails over by Mission. I was just wandering around with my dog at one point in time. Obviously, that's another thing, you have to be hazardous. There are other trail users like me. But I noticed that the trail was unexpectedly, there was a deadfall on it. And you wouldn't know that if you hadn't gone down the first time a little bit slower, you would have encountered that pretty hard. And would have had to do some kind of emergency scenario. So it's not a bad idea, even if it's something you're relatively familiar with. If it's something that not a lot of people go through, maybe checking it out. If it's been a few days or if there's been a big windy storm, that might be helpful.
That's a great note. We've definitely had several encounters with deadfall. You come around a corner a little bit too fast and there's a log in the way, and sometimes you can react accordingly and get over it. Sometimes you can stop in time. And I've definitely witnessed people impacting downfall, and it's horrible, especially if it's waist level and up. It's unavoidable. If it's lower than that or higher than that, sometimes you can duck it, sometimes you can get over it. But it's definitely one thing to be very aware of, especially after a big system like that.
I'm curious, by the way, you started off just an amateur on the North Shore, just goofing around, right? Just trail riding on From and stuff like that. How do you make the jump from that to it being your job?
That riding every day you mentioned earlier, that's a huge factor. Uh, just it was truly the one thing I loved. I played high level baseball with my brother and his friends, and I could not deal with structure. I did everything I could to avoid organized sport, and all I wanted to do is ride with the new friends I'd made and go check out the terrain of the famous North Shore. And it was everything and more than what I expected. I spent every day out there to the point where I had to actually leave team sports and just this was now my life. I loved it. I loved being in the mountains. I loved being away from cars and other people and just biking all the time. We spent all of our time up there. And yeah, definitely
How did you
a
get into
product
it
of
then?
our
Like,
environment.
how did the jump make? Did someone come and say, "Hey, you're really good at this. Did you want to do it professionally, or is it something you had to go seek out? How did that work?"
Well, it began, I was actually just, my brother of all people was the one that did not ride bikes. All of his friends did. And I thought they were so cool. I just wanted to hang out with them. So I got a paper route and then began working at McDonald's at, I think I was 12 years old. My parents forged my job application, so I began working early. Got a bike and I was hooked immediately. And it progressed. I began working in the kitchen at a place called Swiss Chalet. When McDonald's wasn't paying the bills, I moved up in the world. And
I don't think I've ever heard
um,
anyone say that about a Cara restaurant, but there you go.
um, honestly, it just came to the point where I was noticed. I was invited to join in with you probably don't know a fella named Dan Cowan who did the Flow Riders. His show name was Dangerous Dan, and he
Okay.
brought me out to ride this big, elaborate mountain bike setup in front of an audience. And I was spotted by one of the local video makers named
Wow.
Todd Fiander. Everybody calls him Digger, and he invited me to come filming with him. And after the first day out filming, he was like, "Okay, you're going to be in the movie." And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's just like, "We're going to film a lot." And I was like, "All right." And it got to the point where this fella is calling my house phone, more or less being like, "Could Geoff come out and film?" And my parents like, "Who are you?" And I just progressed from there. Got into more videos, and bike companies began giving me product, and then it turned into a full-time gig from there.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you still get a chance to like go out with your friends and just hit the trail kind of thing?
As much as I can. I generally ride during the week. I try to give my weekends to my wife and family when I am in town. And I just travel so much. I'm on the road. And so I ride during the week when most people are actually working. So it's pretty ironic actually. Everybody wants to ride on the weekend. I'm like, the weekend, sorry.
That's the one time that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Do you when you get together with your friends, do you find is it the same group of friends and you all know what your capabilities are, or do you add new people? And how when you add a new person to your ride, how do you assess what level they need to be playing at? How do you work together to make sure that you are hitting the trail safely?
It's funny you say that because our core group, who I have been riding with since I was 12 and 13 years old, they're pretty cliquey, to be completely honest. And when I'm riding with them, it's kind of just our crew. I don't really invite other people to come ride. Like, they are incredible riders and always pushing it, always shredding. And it's hard to bring people that we aren't familiar with in with us, because it is such a point of peer pressure where everybody in our group is riding some pretty hazardous terrain. They do feel peer pressured to ride these, and that's when incidents happen. So when I am riding with my core group, we keep it pretty tight. I do ride with dozens of groups, but these guys in particular, they're as good as it gets. It's pretty amazing, but they all have full-time jobs, families, kids, and you would never expect it by just speaking with these individuals in public, but that they are among the best bikers in the world. But they would never say that. But I'm happy to brag about them.
No, that's good. We're actually going to take a break for a second, take a 4-minute break. We're going to play a video. And when we come back, we're actually going to give away some things, including a couple of those hats or hats that are similar to the ones that you are wearing on your head, if I recall
Oh,
correctly.
these old things.
Those old things. Okay. Hang on a second, folks. We will be right back.
So, you want to be AdventureSmart.
Mm-hmm.
Good,
But what is being AdventureSmart?
Being adventure smart is really all about taking responsibility for your own safety and following the 3 T's.
Got it. What are the 3 T's?
What are the 3 T's? The 3 T's are the trifecta of outdoor safety: trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. The 3 T's can vary from person to person, activity to activity, and season to season. But here are some important ways to ensure you are prepared and safe on your next adventure. Trip planning. We could go on forever about this one. Trip planning is an essential step and one of the easiest ways we can stay safe on our adventures. This is something that should be done every time we head into the outdoors, whether for a few hours or multiple days. Trip planning can be broken down into 4 simple steps. Planning your travel route and navigation is about picking a trail or route based on its difficulty that's relative to your experience, ability, and the amount of time you have. Know your limits. Not all trails are created equal, so know the terrain and conditions. A 10-kilometer hike scrambling straight up a steep mountain is a lot different than a 10-kilometer stroll around a lake. Before you go anywhere, check the weather and keep checking it as things can change fast. This includes wind, precipitation, temperature, and sunset times. Finally, make sure you leave a comprehensive trip plan with a trusted contact. Keep in mind, this may not be your mom or dad or best buddy. Choose someone you can count on if you were to get into trouble. A comprehensive trip plan might be as simple as sending your trusted contact a text or email with key information about your activity, or using the AdventureSmart app, which allows you to enter a detailed trip plan. Training doesn't mean being an elite athlete or being queen of the mountain on Strava. Training is a continuous process of outdoor recreation. It's about developing the necessary skills and abilities to be safe. This might include working your way up to that big summit hike, taking a few courses to expand your wilderness and backcountry knowledge, navigation and route finding courses, or even learning more advanced skills like rescue and emergency training. You have planned and trained. Now make sure you take the essentials. Taking the essentials means packing everything you potentially need to stay warm, safe, and dry if an emergency unexpectedly arises. What if you rolled your ankle or got hurt? What if you got lost and had to spend the night outdoors? Take the time and be prepared to look after yourself. So that's it. Those are the 3 T's.
That's it.
But no matter how hard you train, how well you trip plan, and how much essential gear you bring, you may still find yourself in an emergency. And that's okay. The wilderness can be unpredictable. If you find yourself in an emergency, it's important to stop, think, observe, and plan. Use that essential gear you brought to stay warm, dry, and safe, and contact 911 on your emergency communication device. Remember, search and rescue in BC is free for everyone. Remember, safety is an outcome of good trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. It's your responsibility. So let's all do our part and be adventure smart.
Right. Let's
There
jump
we
right into
go.
those questions. Thanks for sharing that, Scott. It's a good reminder. We talked a little bit about the STOP acronym there, and it was a reminder in the video too. But let's give away some prizes. And thanks to Geoff, we'll give away 2 of those hats. The first 2 people to answer this question correctly will get Geoff to send those off to you and connect with you, and you will be contacted by me via the email that you registered for this webinar with. Geoff brought up some amazing points tonight, and a lot of it rings true as someone who rides pretty regularly herself. And this is an interesting one, so I want you to fill in the blanks. The blank, just one. He asked you one point here, and it's about, okay, I'm going to give away. I'll just ask it. Listen to your
Body.
Haha! Geoff gave it away.
Geoff, you gave it away. I have to come up with another
Oh.
question then.
I thought you were asking me a question from the.
That's okay.
That's the right answer. Yeah.
I get a
Jeff,
hat.
You win a hat that you have up there in your
Congratulations.
house. Okay, we've never had that happen before. Congratulations.
I
You
thought
do
you were
win a
asking
prize.
me a question from the viewers. Oh, good. You?
Okay, great. I might send you a safety whistle for that. Actually, I think you
I'm
should win a prize. I might ship you a little AdventureSmart package. Okay,
I'm
this is for the
muting
audience.
myself.
This is for the audience, not Jeff. So I'm going to come up with another question.
I'll come up with a question because we've said it twice now, right?
Okay,
You should
go
be
for
able to
it.
get it. What does stop stand for?
Oh, you read my mind.
What does stop stand for? There we go. We've got one. Got a couple more people in, and then the first two we're going to go through, and we'll give away a hat. Perfect. And the next question.
The next question is to win a Reco reflector. These are awesome devices. No batteries required. It's super easy to use. Check out their website, RECCO, Reco, and you'll learn more. This one was good too, because we talked about accidents that Jeff's had, mine, and the question is, what should you do in an incident on the trail? We talked about a few things there, and Scott and I have shared the answers, so we'll take a couple of different options here. What should you do in an incident on the trail?
Yes, like we've got one answer, which is great. I'm going to wait for another person to pop in if they want to, but Melissa's answer is superb. One of the options is warn other riders.
Yeah.
Another person says stay put and send a friend to block part of the trail. These are both great answers.
They are, Jeff, and I'm really glad. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, we think about that skiing, and it's a great reminder for riding, right? That's where we fall more than not. We're not falling off the trail unless we're like catapulted off the trail, but it's usually happening right then and there. We need to let others know coming from behind, especially if you're in a train or there's a bunch of you, or there's others that have dropped in after you. They're coming down. It was a great tip, big takeaway tonight. Thank you. The third question and the last prize for the audience. This was interesting. I found as I looked into a few things too. What is the primary reason mountain bikers call for help for search and rescue? This is all based on data. The numbers that I share with you, it's all based on search and rescue data. Jeff, no, you can't answer. Good try though.
You only got
put your
one
hand up this
whistle.
time.
We're not sending you two whistles. That's not going to
I
happen.
want to get half the answers right.
There you go.
You better get them all right.
So Melissa did hit on the end result, which is an injury or a fracture, but the actual original cause of that result, Sandra?
Loss of control, crash.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. In BC, currently we have 1,500 search and rescue calls in British Columbia, collectively with all incidents, all seasons. There's top reasons for those calls, and injury is number one. So this falls right into that category, but specifically it was a crash or loss of control for mountain bikers when we looked into the data before we joined tonight. So yeah, it's a big one to think of, right? It's a big one. It's not gear breakdown. It's not weather. It's not group dynamics. It's that loss of control and crashing.
Bruce hurt.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's pretty much it.
It is. We've wrapped up really well. Scott, thanks again for your support tonight. It's always appreciated and always professionally well done. Jeff, it was great to hang out. Really appreciate it. Native from the North Shore, we all appreciate you and what you do and what you do for the mountain bike community. I know I'm going to bring back this topic to next summer's series and talk a little bit more about trail advocacy and different mountain bike associations and clubs. There's so much more to this industry. Jeff started it and we're going to continue next summer. So stick around and stay tuned. And on behalf of the 3,400 search and rescue volunteers in the province of BC who respond to 1,500 calls a year, thank you for getting informed. Thank you for getting prepared. I hope I see you on the trail. If you see me out there, flag me down, say hi. And Jeff, I'll send you those prizes for you answering the right question. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to get my new hat. And I just want to give a big shout out to Search and Rescue and Lionsgate Hospital for my help as well.
Very good. Good night, everyone. Enjoy your summer. We'll see you for the next webinar.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.